bit of a year-end review on this topic, and that topic, of course, is immigration. As you guys obviously saw, Mayor Eric Adams and Brandon Johnson, they're definitely beginning to feel the pressure because of all the new migrants coming in. And as a result of this, they're obviously beginning to get frustrated and upset with the current regime. So make sure you guys stick around for the full video as we kind of bookend immigration on the year of 2023.
As Americans, is to go to our center of government and raise our voices when we believe government is not responding accordingly. So I'm not pushing this off on New Yorkers. I'm saying to New Yorkers, you're angry and I'm angry. And the source of our discontent lies in Washington, D.C.
Well, it seems to me that it's not only a city that is breaking, but it is also the mayor himself that is, well, pretty much breaking over this issue. What's up, guys? John Claymore here, and this right here has obviously been the chief issue of 2023, or at least it has become the chief issue of 2023. I know that I have definitely talked about it a lot this year, and of course, we're probably going to talk about it more next year, but here's the thing. This immigration crisis has obviously taught some people out there that, the United States is not just some land where money grows on trees, and quite frankly, we just can't be handing things out. I mean, a lot like the mayor of Chicago has recently expressed.
Point in this mission that absent real significant intervention immediately, our local economies are not designed and built to respond to this type of crisis. We are literally building a system as we go along. I commend Mayor,
of course, being the only true believer of the actual leaders of these two very large cities. Now, guys, let me explain something really quick before we go any further. Eric Adams is the typical Democrat politician. He's probably nowhere near as liberal behind closed doors as what he says he is out in public. He obviously ran on a platform, and of course that platform did include New York being a sanctuary city. He didn't really campaign on it that much compared to others, whereas Brandon Johnson, on the other hand, he is an actual true believer. He's an actual true woke. I mean, you now have socialist food deserts in the city of Chicago. And of course, he's finding out that obviously the federal government is going to need to come in and help to fix the situation, which they quite frankly created. And of course, they love to blame Texas Governor Greg Abbott for this. But of course, the only thing Greg Abbott was doing was just sending people to these cities. But it was the Biden administration that chose to open up the border, regardless of what Secretary Mayorkas says. The border is completely, and I mean completely, wide open. I mean, it's ridiculous exactly what's come in this country. But of course, you've also got illegals who are upset about the situation, upset about their living situation. And I think that they really don't need to talk when it comes to this issue, because you are already here illegally. But still, at the same time, we got to listen to those complaints. But before we get to that, though, I want to go ahead and just kind of play you guys something to kind of give you guys an idea of exactly where the current mayor of New York is. Now, guys, while you are listening or while you are watching this news report from New York, make sure you guys pay very close attention to what it is that Mayor Eric Adams is saying in the little bits where his voice can actually be heard.
Business as usual today with Mayor Adams holding his weekly media briefings. He gave some updates on the migrant crisis, including how many of them have received work authorizations. Fox 5's Morgan McKay joins us now in studio with what Adams talked about. Morgan.
Yes, Natasha, it was Mayor Eric Adams' last off-topic briefing of the year. And to wrap up 2023, he focused heavily on the impact the migrant crisis is having on the city's budget and his poll numbers.
I've never seen New Yorkers as angry as they are now about a particular topic that they have all rallied behind.
Mayor Eric Adams' approval ratings this year have been dismal. And in a recent Quinnipiac poll, he saw approval numbers lower than any mayor in history. But Adams pushed back on Tuesday, blaming the migrant crisis for why New Yorkers are frustrated with him.
Many people thought that Eric was in charge of the buses coming in, that Eric was in charge of deportation. They don't know that our hands are tied.
More than 4,000 migrants arrived in New York City just last week, and more than 161,000 migrants have been cared for by the city since last spring. However, the city has made improvements in helping migrants file asylum and work authorization papers, and say that to date, more than 2,200 migrants have received back their work authorization cards. Josh Goldfein from the Legal Aid Society says now all that is needed is more effort from the state to connect those migrants to jobs.
The governor has set up a portal for people that lists jobs that are available, but it seems like the state should be doing more to connect people to those jobs, to help them get to the communities where those jobs are.
And now, in less than 2 weeks, migrant families with children living at the Floyd Bennett Field and other shelters will be receiving 60-day notices, which means they will have to find either a new place to live or reapply for a shelter bed. If they need to reapply, they may have to wait at the reticketing site in the East Village, where many migrants have been waiting for days to get a bed. Goldfein says that this shuffle will be particularly hard on kids, since this could disrupt their education.
But anybody who has children, is not just going to be able to move them on a moment's notice. And also, many of these kids are enrolled in school, so there's a lot of uncertainty both for the children and their families, but also for the schools.
Now, also, as part of the city's efforts to cut down on migrant costs, the Adams administration says it has moved almost all single adult migrants out of hotels and into shelters, saving hotel rooms for only families with children. Natasha?
You heard that, and trust me, there is more, which I will play for you guys here in a second. But the overall end-game goal of the Democratic Party has been what Brandon Johnson is about to say, because I'm about to play you guys this clip here in a second, which, of course, he went on CNN to talk about this situation. And, of course, one of the things he brought up was that he wanted some form of actual immigration reform, meaning he actually wanted some type of bill, some type of pathway to citizenship for these people who, by the way, are here illegally.
Support that we receive from the federal government, we appreciate that. Work authorization to put people on a pathway to sustainability, I certainly appreciate that. And without real significant investment from our federal government, it won't just be the city of Chicago that won't be able to maintain this mission. It's the entire country that is now at stake. But in no way what the state of Texas is doing is helping the cause. As much as we recognize that there are challenges, significant challenges at the border, and we do need real substantive immigration reform and policies that allow us to have a structure and a pathway to citizenship. But again, sending buses all over the state of Illinois and all over the country is reckless and, quite frankly, is dangerous.
That, my friends, is the actual goal. Now, guys, as I mentioned earlier, this is something I've been talking about all year. However, I've really stayed, for the most part, away from the actual political topic itself, meaning the pure politics section of the issue. Now, we've talked about humanitarian crisis. We've talked about migrants now being out in the cold. We've talked about migrants who, quite frankly, should not be here. They basically were told to come over. A lot of these people who missed the deadline to receive benefits are now sitting out in the cold with nothing. And I mean, absolutely nothing. I mean, you probably heard that there, where these people are now waiting in line. And I've been very adamant in saying that you shouldn't be here to begin with. You should have used some form of common sense and thought to yourself, hey, look, the journey to America from like Venezuela or from Uruguay or from Argentina or from even Mexico, Central America, was a long, arduous journey. Some of these people, of course, have families that live in these very, very large cities. And, of course, they're complaining about the cold. And they're complaining about their current situation, even though they were allowed to stay in hotels. Don't worry, we'll get to that here in a second. Because, the city of New York, being a sanctuary city, they've chosen to obviously put these new voters in. I say voters because that's obviously the goal here, is to give them some form of citizenship. But I haven't really spoken much about the political aspect, because the political aspect is really just kind of mind-numbing and boring. But still, at the same time, it's obviously very important. So, what is the actual goal here? Well, the goal is to bring all these people in, and then the Democratic Party can come in before the election is over with and say, you know what, let's get immigration reform done. Let's go ahead and get this done. Of course, somebody's probably going to think to themselves, well, the Senate right now is 51-49 Democrat, but they need 60 votes to get this type of immigration reform done. Of course, that was the plan before Republicans took over the U.S. Congress. Republicans have a very, very slim hold in Congress, by the way. Very, very, very slim majority. And a couple of congressmen have retired. Kevin McCarthy, thank God. But still, at the same time, it kind of puts us in a very bad spot. Because, as you guys know, there are always rhinos out there who will betray their own constituents. They don't really care. They'll do it anyway, regardless of what the payoff is. Not very hard to convince these people once you throw a few dollars in front of their face, or if you threaten to pull a certain special interest from them, they just may respond, they just may act, because it's all about the cheap labor. It's also about the votes too. And as I've said before, there's obviously another agenda going on here, which of course we can't really talk about here on YouTube, or else YouTube will find a way to yellow tag our videos or yellow dollar sign our videos, demonetize it, make sure it doesn't travel the algorithm, or in some cases actually suspend you altogether for 7 days or 14 days. However, by the way, if I'm not on the tube for roughly 7 days, it's probably because I did in fact receive a suspension. Figure I would say that before I go any further. So how do you expect to get something like this done? Well, the thing is this here. This issue is probably going to linger for a while. The main reason why is because the 2024 Senate map does not exactly favor the current administration. Even if the Republican nominee, which we can just go ahead and assume is Donald Trump, even if the Republican nominee found a way to lose the election in 2024, Republicans would still more than likely swing back the United States Senate. I mean, you got Joe Manchin in West Virginia. He's retiring. That seat right there will flip. Ohio is getting redder and redder and redder. Trump is on the ballot. It's a Trumpian state. He's already endorsed Moreno, the leading candidate there in the state of Ohio for that Senate seat. So more than likely, it would flip. Sherrod Brown's seat would probably flip red. Same thing in Montana. John Tester's seat would more than likely flip red. And there's probably one or two more seats that would go in the process. So therefore, immigration reform becomes much, much harder for the current regime. Now, of course, if Trump wins, you may get a border wall and some of these people will probably be deported. I personally think that you should deport them all. But then again, at the same time, it may be very difficult to do given the fact that our current facilities, our current government facilities, we don't exactly have enough manpower to get rid of all these people or send them back. I didn't mean to say get rid of them like that, but still at the same time, these people should not be here. These people you should have used some form of common sense and not trekked across the country, because if they had actually used some common sense and said to themselves, you know what, maybe it's possible I may get hung over here in the United States and it may get cold and maybe they don't have the facilities. I mean, we're not a socialist utopia, nor should we ever be a socialist utopia. Kind of like what Brandon Johnson was saying earlier when he basically was saying that our system was not designed for this. That's correct. Our system was not designed for this. You see, immigration is supposed to be done legally, meaning you're supposed to apply for it. Even if you are here on like a visa, you need to still apply for citizenship, apply for legalization, all that type of stuff there. Of course, if you don't commit any crimes, you stand a better chance of obviously becoming a U.S. citizen. As I've said before on several occasions, I am in favor of legal immigration, but definitely not illegal immigration. The situation this year has been completely, and I mean completely untenable, to the point now to where New York City Mayor Eric Adams has finally seen that there is a culprit behind this, somebody who should actually be blamed. Pay attention.
We're seeing the erosion of the quality of life that we've improved on in such a short period of time of this administration. And we have been impacted. For many months, we were able to keep the visualization of this crisis from hitting our streets, but we have reached a breaking point. We're no longer able to do that because of the volume in numbers. Just last week, we had 3,900 people that arrived here. We are averaging anywhere from 2,500 to close to 4,000 a week. And if you do the math, you see that's 8,000 every 2 weeks, potentially 16,000 a month that we must feed, clothe, house, educate children, and all the services that you would give a normal adult. And we're seeing that play out on our streets of New York. And that is what the breaking point looks like, what we are experiencing right now. And people are angry about the asylum and migrant. I've never seen New Yorkers as angry as they are now about a particular topic that they have all rallied behind. You know, we divide on public safety, we divide on transportation issues, we divide on a lot of issues. But the byproduct of the migrant asylum seekers crisis and the economic impact has hit every New Yorker in places that they feel it.
We told you guys that the cities would collapse, but obviously YouTube just didn't want to listen. Kind of confusing, especially given the fact that now after everything he just said, he basically was saying blame Joe Biden, which is also kind of funny, especially given the fact that Eric Adams is currently under investigation at this moment in time by the federal government. They keep sending the feds to his office. There's also now Me Too allegations against him. It makes you wonder exactly how much longer he's going to last. Of course, when he talks about the erosion of the city itself, I need to go ahead and kind of remind people of the New Yorkers that I have ran into. By the way, very fine people when they move down here. Of course, they oftentimes seem to, after it takes a little while at first, but they do eventually assimilate and they do eventually blend in with the populace down south. So here's the main thing that you hear. New York City, or at least Manhattan, was fixed when Giuliani was in office. New York City as a whole was improving in the process of being fixed when Bloomberg was in office. Of course, before Bloomberg left, things started to, I guess you say things began to fall apart just a little bit, but not noticeably. And then you get Bill de Blasio, who went out of his way to completely destroy the city. And, of course, Eric Adams, he's now the mayor of the city. And, of course, it's beginning to get much, much worse than what it was under de Blasio. I've always felt that he would end up becoming a lot like former Mayor David Dinkins, but don't worry, we may discuss him at a later date. Fact of the matter is the situation in these very large, these very blue cities, these sanctuary cities, is completely and totally unattainable, meaning that it's not sustainable. It's quite frankly something that we can't continue to do because after a while, as you guys have heard come from me on several occasions, you get people stuck out there on the street, and during the wintertime, it's obviously much, much worse due to the fact that the sicknesses do, in fact, break out, and, of course, a humanitarian crisis could, in fact, be created. Seeing how it is that we're talking about both mayors, I don't think I need to bring up the Brighton Park issue, but still at the same time, this has obviously been the end-game goal. Bring these people over, of course, eventually supplant one voting bloc with another, and pass some form of legislation. However, that legislation is more than likely not going to occur, meaning that we're going to have a lot of people here for a very long time, and this situation could continue, meaning that it could get chaotic for a very, 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 let's just say quite a long stretch, possibly a year, 2 years, possibly 3. But what happens to those people who don't want to assimilate? Well, let me show you this really quick before we go any further.
A mí me dijeron que este país era diferente, pero no.
As Karina Abando walks her son to school, she knows the clock is ticking. The 38-year-old migrant from Ecuador moved into the Row Hotel, now a New York City shelter, 3 weeks ago, but now she needs to find a new home. Hers is one of thousands of migrant families in New York's shelter system that have been told they need to clear out and either reapply for shelter housing or find their own way in the coming weeks.
Yo le dije a mi hijo que aprovechen, disfruten el hotel, que estamos con un techo ahorita, porque ya nos van a mandar. Ya nos van a mandar y vamos a estar ya a dormir en el tren o en la calle. Y mi hijo solo se puso a llorar y dijo, tengamos fe.
Mayor Eric Adams' office says some families will receive a holiday reprieve, but no decision has been conveyed to many of the more than 3,000 families that have been issued notices so far. Ana Vasquez, a 22-year-old from Venezuela, is 8 months pregnant. She recently received her notice to leave the Row Hotel by January 8th, less than 2 weeks after her baby is due.
Pediríamos acá al hotel que nos dejen. Si no nos dejan, pues no sé qué haríamos. No tenemos como un plan de escape si no podemos alquilar. Es difícil la situación. Y más con un bebé.
The first wave of New York's migrant families was expected to reach their 60-day shelter limit just days after Christmas. The city, overwhelmed by asylum seekers, has warned there's no guarantee they'll get to stay in the same shelter or even in the same part of the city.
Those families are panicked right now. They could be hours from the closest school or the school that they are currently enrolled
First
in.
Lady, I would really love to say that I feel bad for her and I feel bad for the children, and I really do feel bad for the children because it's not their fault that their parents chose to drag them across the country to these spots. But I can't sympathize with her because you're upset that you got removed from a hotel. First of all, you did not do anything to earn that hotel. All right, you did not do anything to earn that hotel at all. As a matter of fact, if you really want a place to go, it's about 2,500 to 3,000 miles to the south. That right there is probably where you should be at, and you should apply for asylum like everybody else. Of course, the Supreme Court kind of put the kibosh on that, but still, at the same time, you should have better sense. You shouldn't just come up here not realizing that the federal government, while they do tell you that they are welcoming you here, that does not mean that they are going to take care of you for the rest of your life, which makes you wonder exactly what the overall end-game goal is. Will these people show up? Will these people come here? Will these people get immediate work visas? Are they coming here as economic migrants? Or are they coming here to, collect? Are they coming here to collect benefits? Is that right there what these people are looking to do? It certainly sounds this way, especially given the fact that you got a woman who's 8 months pregnant, who's upset, obviously, because she's got nowhere to stay. Yet we told all these people that it would probably be best that you stay right where you are, because bringing all these people over at one time and being able to take care of them was a totally impossible task, which speaks to exactly how incompetent the people in charge really and truly are. So what happens next? I'm going to go ahead and go on record right now and tell you what I've always thought. And of course, I've actually hid this small part from these videos, because I wanted to save it for a much, much larger focus. And I mean a much, much larger focus on immigration sometime next year. It is my belief that these migrants are going to come here, not learn English, not try to assimilate into society, but create their own little society while at the same time getting government subsidies. This is obviously going to breed more jealousy, especially amongst people of color, black people, who are obviously seeing the benefits that they think that they earned, which they really haven't because they're not entitled to them at all. They're going to do this, and then they're going to turn right back around after doing this, and they're going to get upset, and eventually the situation is going to get dicey. The question is when, though. Will it occur during the spring, or will it occur in 2024? You see, you got a presidential election coming up, and one candidate's talking about immigration. That right there obviously being Donald Trump. And I have a feeling that the situation is going to get completely out of hand, and you may see riots and you may see more calamities to occur. That right there is what I'm seeing as a result of this current situation, this current nightmare. Now, it was obviously done by design, but as I have said in previous videos before, these people right here will screw up the screw up. All right, they may not mean to do it, but of course, I'll put it this way here. They are intentionally trying to screw over the American people. However, they don't factor in all the other possibilities, things that could go wrong as a result of their intentional screw up. So basically, when I say that they are screwing up the screw up, you already know that they are, in fact, screwing up the screw up, and things have not exactly gone the way they wanted it to go. And as a result of this, the people who live in Chicago and the people who live in New York, they are obviously going to be forced to suffer with this. But it's not just them. It's also going to be the U.S. taxpayer. But we will save that for another date. With that right there being said, guys, I want to do a bit of a year-end review on this topic. Make sure you guys hit the like button. Make sure you guys subscribe if you guys are new to the channel. Please leave a comment in the comment section, and please cut the notifications bell on. We'll continue to cover this topic going into the new year, but still at the same time, it's going to be done in a much, much more essay-type format. But still, this is an issue that obviously we're going to be paying attention to for a while, because in an election year, it's definitely going to get chaotic. With that there being said, I'll see you guys later.